sat down. We were at one place, I can't remember what it was called anyway. Mike Clark was sitting on one side of me and Brad Haddon was sitting on the other side of me. And that was pretty cool in itself. I remember watching Mike Clark's first test. I might have been in primary school still or just in year 7, when he was young, around 150 in India. So to have him sitting next to me sort of as my potential captain at the time was great. And he says, you ready to go, youngster? And I said, yeah, sure, let's go. I thought he meant in the next place. And he goes, nah, for next week. And I knew exactly what he meant by that because the test was the next week. And I said, yep. I just remember saying, yep, with conviction and no other thought in my mind. And he said, look, basically the only way you don't play the first test is if you bore yourself out of it in this warm-up game. And he goes, I don't think you're going to do that. I think you're bowling really well at the moment and we believe in you. And I think this will be great. We'll work together in this first test on in this warm-up game on a few plans for the first test. And, I'm backing you in, basically.
And in that game, you got Moeen Ali and Nick Compton out. And at the time, Nick Compton was around the test side. He'd gone to play for Worcestershire as an extra game to sort of keep himself in the frame for the test team.
Yeah, I bowled pretty well. I knew at the time that I wasn't bowling at my best. It was tough. It was bowled nicely, but it was the first time I bowled with Duke's balls. And my finger was already getting ripped to pieces. And I guess this is a bit that I haven't spoken a lot about. I've spoken a little bit about it at the time, but I headed into that UK summer bowling incredibly well. I bowled beautifully in Australia, and honestly it felt like I could have bowled with my eyes closed. But then getting over there with the new ball, it just threw my action to pieces. That's what it really felt like, because I didn't have confidence in actually holding the ball in my hand, and my finger was getting cut. And I don't know if you remember Moeen Ali recently when he played in England, he couldn't bowl. When that happened, it's really not good. So that was sort of the beginning of that becoming a bit difficult. But yeah, I bowled really nicely in that practice game. I remember I got Compton out stumped. Moeen, I didn't get him with a very good ball. It's quite a full ball that he managed to nick to first slip. But things went well in that practice game.
Was it just a bigger seam, more prouder seam?
Completely different. It's just such a different ball. It's got a lot of lacquer on it. It's a very thick, pronounced seam. So where you've actually placed your fingers on the ball, when you've had no experience of that, and you're not experienced yourself as a professional cricketer, as a 19-year-old, trying to adapt quickly on the biggest stage can be pretty tough.
It must have been a pretty big clue to everyone else that you were going to play in the first test, that you were named in that team to play against Worcestershire.
Yeah.
And how did you feel? How was the rest of the team? I mean, you jumped ahead of Nathan Lyon in the pecking order. How was all of that?
I felt good and nervous. I think as anyone would at that stage, I was sort of dawning on me what was about to happen, and I was mentally just trying to prepare myself for it without completely locking myself in, because I didn't fully lock it in until I got told. But from that day when Michael Clark told me that night, I was mentally just trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was going to have to walk out there on the first test and be ready for whatever I was going to feel, and just be ready to get the ball in my hand and try and bowl with some courage, with the way I know how to bowl. So that's how I was feeling at the time. And I must admit, I was definitely nervous.
What was the situation with your family? Did Alex stay with there at Trent Bridge, but were they coming anyway, or did you have
No, they weren't coming. So we went to Nottingham after the tour game, and we had 2 training sessions. So the main session was 2 days before the game, and I was walking off the training track and into the rooms because we trained out in the middle, because the nets were out in the middle. And who walked up to me at the time? Oh, it was Rod Marsh, actually, out of all people. He walked up to me and he said, Ash, go and call your parents, you're in, mate. And then Darren Lehman came up and patted me on the back, so congratulations, mate. So I walked straight into the rooms, called mum and dad from there, and God, that was an amazing phone call. Mum was in tears, my brothers were yelling, they were so excited. Dad could hardly speak, and then it was like, okay, right, you need to get here. So they got on a flight that night, I'm pretty sure, and landed, in Heathrow, got straight in a taxi and made it to the ground with a minute to go before my baggy green presentation, because it was a long cab ride.
Was Melbourne, was that home for them?
Melbourne. So they've gone Melbourne to London. And the soonest flight that they could, I mean, they got to see my Baggy Green presentation, which was incredible, from Glenn McGrath, and witness that whole moment, which is, it's great. I love thinking about it, you know, it's pretty exciting.
What's it like getting your cap from Glenn McGrath?
It's good. Yeah, that was cool. You never know who you're going to get it from, and then when I saw it was Glenn McGrath, you know, he's a legend of the game, and so that was a real honour. You know, he talked about pride, honour and respect in a Baggy Green, and you know, he just said that everyone sort of has your back, really, in his team now, and it's a club you sort of be a part of forever, and that, you know, you can be proud of that. So that was nice.
I was looking at the reports last night of when the news of your debut came out, and even Cricket Australia's own website called it one of the biggest bombshells in Ashes history.
Yeah, it was huge. Yeah, it was. I guess just because it was unexpected. Nath had been playing a lot up until that stage, and like you said, there was a lot going on at the time, and a minute before the first test for that to be announced in a huge series in England, that a 19-year-old makes their debut for Australia is a big bombshell.
Well, there's only two players younger than you to play for Australia this century, Pat Cummins and Sam Constas.
There you go, yeah.
And yeah, I guess, yeah, at the time it just seemed so incredible. But I also remember looking back at it, you know, when you've got Cricket Australia saying one of the biggest bombshells in Ashes history, but I'm also trying to square it in my mind that the signs were there, the fact that you played in Worcester and all those sorts of things. I'm still trying to get my head around why it felt like such a surprise when actually it had been, all the direction of travel was in that way.
I guess just when it actually happens and it gets announced on day one, you know, it wasn't announced before. They wanted to keep it really quiet. So
and they must have kept it quiet.
They did, yeah, we kept it extremely quiet. The only people that knew really were my family, and I told Justin Langer as well, as he was my coach in WA at the time. He was pretty excited for me. So we kept it extremely quiet. And that was the whole point, for it to be a bit of a surprise factor as well, because they wouldn't have really known anything about me. So that's probably why it would have felt like even more of a bombshell on day one of
You've got a smile on your face when you talk about it as well.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's an amazing time. I think now that I'm experienced, I'm 32 now, I realise how big that was. It felt big at the time, for sure. I just picture it in today's climate, you know, like 13 years on with today's media, and I just imagine it would have been crazy, you know, and it felt crazy back then. So I now know what it means to debut for Australia, I guess at 19 in the first Ashes test in England, away from home. Yeah, and I'm proud of it.
So what was it like to be on the field that day? England won the toss and batted first.
Yeah.
And actually you didn't have to do a great deal. England
didn't have to do much, about 7 overs. Being on the field was good. I mean, we had a pretty good bowling attack, you know. We had Siddle, Stark, Pattinson, myself, Shane Watson bowled as well. It was a gloomy, overcast day in England. It was such an English sort of cricket day. And it was everything that I'd seen on TV, you know, packed house, English national anthem, Jerusalem playing. That's a spine-tingling moment. When they play that as you're walking out the ground, you feel pretty small. And you certainly feel like the whole of England is supporting England, and there's not many people supporting you there. But I knew exactly where my family was sitting for the whole 5 days. And I just kept thinking of them and kept looking over to them, sort of thing. If I felt like I needed to feel some closeness or like some support, you know, that was really nice. And the boys looked after me so well. You know, everyone treated me like their youngest brother, which was nice, because they probably understood more than I did the enormity of the moment.
England 250 and all out on day one. You bowled 7 overs. Didn't have to do a great deal. Peter Siddle takes 5.
Yep.
Australia 75 for 4 at the end of the day. Yep. It was quite a famous day for Jimmy Anderson's delivery to Michael Clarke.
One of the best balls I've ever seen.
That, you know, trim the off bail. So somehow got past Clark's outside edge.
He was the best batter in the world at the time as well. You know, he was the most informed batter in the world. To get him out that way was amazing. Yeah.
I think what I wanted to ask, were you a bit miffed about being number 11, by the way?
Not at all. I was sort of relieved in a way. You know, I didn't have to. Well, I thought I wouldn't have to go out there in the chaos, and that's exactly when I went out there. But it wasn't. I mean, it was my first game, but I never thought of it as batting at number 11. I walked out there feeling like a batter.
So the next morning, Australia had gone from 75 for 4 overnight to 118 for 9 before lunch, pretty much in the first hour of the day's play. How were you feeling sitting there? Because there's like a balcony, isn't there, at Trent Bridge where you can sit and watch from?
Yeah.
You've got your pads on, you're watching this unfold. Did you have time to be nervous, or was it one of those, where's my 5-pad, where's my box, I've got to get out there pretty quickly?
Yeah, it's a strange feeling. I'll actually rewind it back to the night before when Anderson was bowling, and it felt like he was swinging the ball 3 different ways. You know, that's what it felt like in the rooms. And the English crowd was the first time I'd experienced an English crowd, and what they're really good at is making you feel pretty small, and they're really witty and smart, and with the way they go about it, it's that classic English humour, and you can't help but laugh when you're out in the field. They have all sorts of chants, but the one chant that was ringing in everyone's head was the Jimmy Anderson chant.
Really?
You know, or Jimmy Anderson, and Michael Clarke, he got out to that ball and he was walking off at the time, and he got in the rooms and he was chanting the song. He was singing it because it was just so stuck in his head, and it felt like when you're out there, like I was sitting inside most of the time watching, not even out on the balcony, sort of watching, peering over, and Ashton Turner was there as well for the test at the time, just being around the group and watching as part of the Hampshire sort of setup. So I was sitting with him because he's one of my close mates. We were just chatting about the game and how I might try and play certain bowls. So, but it was like, holy moly, like it's actually all kicking off right now, and we're way behind. So that's how I was feeling the night before. And then to actually walking out there at 117, 118 for 9. Phil Hughes was out there at the other end. Graham Swan was bowling at the time, and I was actually speaking to Ash Turner just before I was going about how I would try and play Graham Swan. And the funny thing is, me and him had watched every bit of footage on Graham Swan there is on YouTube. Like, we loved the way he bowls because we were both off spinners, and really he was the best bowler to watch. He was the best off spinner probably in the world at the time. Ashton was getting really good, but Swan's shape and drift and dip, and he came into that series taking wickets, I reckon, against New Zealand as well. Bowled beautifully, and so we'd always watched him, his variations, and Ash sort of said, you watched a lot of him sort of play. He goes, mate, you just got to go about it in the way you know how to go about it. I remember I tried to play him on pace. However, I was walking out to bat. I remember looking straight over to where my parents were, looked left over to where they were sitting, but it felt like the ground was moving from side to side because of the chants. It was so loud. It was the last wicket. England was so far on top of the game. In a stadium, when everyone's chanting, it always feels like one side of the ground is slightly out of sync with the other one. So yeah, it felt like the ground was moving like that. If you imagine like seaweed swaying in a current under the ocean, that's what it felt like. I just wanted to get through my first ball. I didn't want to get a golden duck, blocked Swan, and then I got a single off him. And after that, honestly, put me at ease massively, and then everything happened from there.
What did Phil Hughes say to you?
Every single ball, at the start, he was taking more of the strike, and then Wolf ran out a message that just said to back me in, because I'd made runs to WA at the time. I'd made runs in the A series as well. Wolf ran out a message, said just back me in and take the runs that we can get, which was cool. So he stuck to that, to Phil's credit, because he was batting really nicely at the time. But every single ball that I was on strike, he would come down to me and say, next ball, next ball, next ball. And he was even stronger on that the more runs I hit. And it kept me extremely present. It was a real lesson in how to stay present, and batting really is about consistently making good decisions. I think that's what anything is all about. But when you're out in the middle and the pressure's on and the spotlight's on, how can you get back to consistently making good decisions? And that's what Phil did for me that day.
Did England say anything to you when you arrived at the crease?
Yeah, plenty. Kevin Peterson gave me a mouthful, I remember that. I can't really remember exactly what he said, but I remember laughing at him. I was 19, and he was an old, experienced player and was trying to intimidate me, and I was like, it wasn't intimidating, just because just didn't matter. I was out there batting 11, just trying to have a crack. But that's how I looked at the game at the time. But it was still Kevin Peterson in an Ashes game. It was a guy I looked up to. I love watching Kevin Peterson play cricket. Like, me and my brothers loved him, and we've got so much respect for him, and he's a great guy. I've had chats with him, not about that afterwards, but just chats about cricket with him, and I respect him a lot. But yeah, obviously he was going to do that. Anderson, as I was riding past him, would always have a word. Broad would have a little word. chirps from Pryor behind the stumps. Yeah, they were into me. It was never abusive, never like that. But it was just made to make you feel uncomfortable, and that's exactly what you should do to a 19-year-old who's out there for his first time. You've got to make it uncomfortable because it's the highest level of the game, and you've got to take any advantage that you can, and it's not meant to be easy. I would have been disappointed if I didn't get to experience that. But I maintained it was never personal, never abusive. It's good from them.
So you avoided your golden duck. You
Yep.
got off the mark.
Yeah.
9th ball, you hit Jimmy Anderson back over his head for 4.
Yeah. There was back over his head is a embellisher. I hit it straight into the ground, straight drive, and it came straight out of the middle of the bat. The outfield was really fast because
It's a lovely sunny day,
the
wasn't
sun came out, and as soon as the sun comes out in England, particularly at Trent Bridge, the ground goes really dry there. You can see it quite clearly on TV, and it rocketed away to the fence. And from that moment, really, that was a really key moment because I felt the ball out of the middle of the bat. From that moment on, it just felt like I was seeing the ball really, really easily. I was picking up the length quite quickly, and I was looking to try and hit boundaries, honestly. Because the ball was a little bit older, the wicket was pretty good. That's how I saw it, and when the ball was there to be hit for 4, I was trying to hit it for 4.
it? Could have been stumped.
Could have been, yeah.
Only had 6.
Felt pretty out,
Off Graham Swan.
Yeah, I was really lucky that I got my foot down just in time. Could have gone either way. It's a nice ball, so it drew me into a drive, and it spun and bounced, and Pryor took the stumps off. It was a nice piece of work, but thankfully it went my way. I had no idea. It was heart in your mouth moment, and I would have been shattered because I felt good. I remember being like, God, I was feeling great, and it went my way, and I actually couldn't believe it, but there was just enough doubt.
So watching the shots that you played,
Yeah.
there was a sweep off Swan that went for
lap
4.
sweep, yeah.
And then Stephen Finn was bowling.
Yep.
And England lost their length. Finn in particular, he started bowling short to you.
They were trying to bounce me, yeah.
And you tucked in.
Well, it was my favourite shot, like hooking and pulling the ball. It was a shot that I played all the time as a kid. So short bowling was never intimidating. I did get out to it every now and then because I was compulsive on it, and I'd just try and smack it. But when you're in that situation and hitting the ball well, you're gonna take it on. And particularly when I've played on some faster wickets back home, that wicket didn't feel too fast. So even when it was dug in, whilst Stephen Finn was probably pretty fast at the time, so was Stuart Broad. They were in the high 130s to 140s. I was taking that on and got a few out of the middle of the bat, and I started looking for the short ball.
And there was another shot where you sort of went inside out off Graham Swan,
Yep.
over long off
Yep.
for 6. I mean, at that point you were batting like David Gower.
It's hard to describe the feeling. I was lucky that Phil was there, keeping me so present, but the occasion faded away. The only reference point I had was my family. Like I said, I'd look at them almost every ball. Like,
What about the rest of the crowd? Because there were some Aussies in there that were sort of cheering you on.
but the whole crowd by that stage was cheering me on. The English crowd were great, and they were loving it actually, because it was pretty exciting when the ball started flying around and I got past 50. I got a standing ovation sort of thing when I got 50, and from a mostly English crowd, that's pretty cool. Again, looking straight at my family, I can still see it. So that's nice. So it never felt, it never felt like the crowd were against me, if that makes sense. And maybe that made it easier for the moment to sort of dissipate, and I could just, like I said, focus on the ball and try and whack it.
Because milestones started to be ticked off. There was a 50 partnership.
Yep.
You overtook Phil Hughes in the way that you were scoring. You caught him up and went past him. I was watching the commentary. Ian Botham said it was almost embarrassing for England, the way that you were taking them on.
Yeah, I think that was actually after a short ball, because I've watched it back a number of times myself and with my family, and his voice is the one that I remember most clearly from the commentary. I remember he said, "Well done, young man. Well done. That will be it." Like when I got 50 down the third man, and I was like, "That's awesome."
It was like an open face-off.
Yeah, I just blocked it, and they had like a deep point, I'm pretty sure, and it trickled just fine of him for 2.
50 off 50 balls.
It was. Like I said, I was scoring freely up, but I was really looking to score. I think it would be easy to go out there and try and survive, but it just wasn't the way I was playing at the time. And it's credit to Darren Lehman as well, who just said, "Mate, go out and bat the way you know play the way you know how to play it. And I sort of only knew how to play one way at that time. And that was really positively. So I felt really empowered, and it felt like if I was going to foul, I was allowed to foul that way, which is a really big lesson.
You went off for lunch, 69 not out.
Is that what it was?
69 at lunch. What was the dressing room like when you went in?
Really good, like massive ruffles on the head and getting around me, but not too much. Like they were really smart when I think back. That it was awesome, but you know, they're like, just keep going, and they wanted me to keep going. I think they could have gone crazy, you know, and just kept talking to me about it, talk about this and that, but they just let me have my lunch. Yeah, I remember sitting in that room at Trent Bridge, actually. They had these like little rice pudding things in this. I had way too many of them that tour. But they were just in these little cups, in these plastic cups, and they were delicious. I reckon I had a couple of those, and you can eat whatever you want when you're 19, you don't put on any weight. I wouldn't have them now. Tucked into a nice lunch, and it was time to go back out there again. I don't think I took all my pads off. I never like taking all my pads off if I'm batting and I have lunch. So I had my thigh pads still on, definitely, because I like that sort of feeling. I don't like putting sweaty gear back on. I want to feel like I'm still batting, just to stay in it mentally as well. And then Phil just had this steely look in his eyes the whole time. And that's one thing I really remember about him, that steely look in his eyes. And it was like time to go again.
You had a lead at this point, you'd overtaken England's score, back out after lunch, and then Ian Botham again on the commentary, the shots you're playing. He said, it's not the stroke play of a number 11. It almost felt like he felt like he'd been had, like he'd been hustled.
I played a late cut, I reckon, off Swan. It was like I said, I played Swan on pace, and I sort of knew when it was really slow, he was trying to spin the ball. And then there was two different trajectories. He bowled a faster off spinner, and then he bowled a 45 sort of seam ball that would drift in as like a half arm ball, and he would want that. He got a lot of guys out leaving that ball actually bowled. And I knew that ball, and that was that ball. And so I just went back and just laid it off the face of my bat and went for 4. But it's like those little moments. I think Ayrton said it once about his driving. He said it's like having God's hand on your brain, you know, and you sort of you don't know how it's happening, but it just happens. And it's like all of your knowledge and skill comes out at one time. That's what it felt like. It just felt like I had God's hand on my brain.
You keep going.
Yeah.
You go past 95, which was previously the best score by a number 11 in Test cricket.
Tino Best?
Tino Best. He done to England. You and Phil Hughes had got the record partnership at the time for the 10th wicket.
Yeah.
In Test cricket. It was a sort of an edge off Graham Swan that took you to the highest score by a number 11. At that point, I think your family, the TV cameras panned to your family, and they were on their feet, applauding.
Yeah.
Did you know, by the way, that at the time that was the highest score by a number 11?
I think it came up on the big screen, I'm pretty sure, and the crowd really were clapping and celebrating that. I think I did know, but only because of that. I hadn't kept any tabs on the highest score by number 11.
How are you feeling in the 90s in
They're good. I just wanted to keep going. Yeah, it felt fine. I mean,
no nerve, like the nervous 90s.
I hadn't made a first class 100. I think my highest first class score before that was 71, maybe against Tassie.
Many hundreds in any other sort of cricket before?
Just 2 in club cricket, nothing other than that. So just the feeling of like it might actually happen, but I didn't change the way I played.
Because at that point, you know, looking at the old footage, England's plans had gone. Like, they were bowling to Australia's number 11, there was no slips, there was fielders back on the leg side, they were really scrambling.
Yeah, they were.
Stuart Broad bowls you a short ball.
Yeah.
You pull it into the leg side.
Yeah.
And then
smashed it. Absolutely smashed it. Should have hit it up, but I actually tried to hit it down.
Broad comes in and bowls to Agar. Agar swings the short ball away. He could be caught. He's out. He's caught in the deep. He's out for 98. A wonderful debut comes to an end. An extraordinary performance. And the short bowler's got him as he tugged at it and hit it hard into the onside. Australia all out for 280. The innings of his life comes to an end. Almost unfairly denied 100. He took the bowling on as he had throughout. And listen for the applause. Some of the England players have run up to congratulate him as he makes his way off the field. A magnificent performance on debut from Ashton Agar, out for 98.
Graham Swan, the fielder, he was
Yeah, it's a
about,
good catch.
He was about 3/4 of the way back.
He
Was he? He wasn't all the way on the boundary.
And then the hardest catches, like, because it was curling towards him. I sort of hit it so hard and it was curling towards him. I hit it, and then because my helmet, you'll see on the footage, is going everywhere. Like, you would have fit 2 balls between the gap and my helmet. I've got a small head, mate, and helmet that hardly fit. I remember Missouri coming in, fitting me a better helmet after that test match.
Is that what happens before that? Because obviously that was the first time you would have needed an Australian helmet, I think, or it would have been relatively new to you?
The actual Australian helmet. That was the first time that I'd ever worn one of those. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. But so I couldn't really see, and then I saw it sizzling, and he caught it. He's got a good pair of hands, Graham Swan. But there were a lot of blokes out there. At the time, I reckon they had 4 blokes out in the leg side because I was trying to take on everything. And the few balls before that, I was trying to step inside and hit it over the keeper. You know, that's how I just wanted to get there. And I was going to do it in the way that I got all my other runs, which was taking the game on. And I had no fear of what the bowler was bowling at the time. I just sort of wanted to play the shots I was trying to play at that stage. And yeah, certainly don't regret it.
Even, you know, you've said that the English crowd, the English supporters are behind you.
Yeah.
It's like someone had let the pin out of the ground, wasn't it? Like just all the air,
Yeah.
and just that deflation around the stadium.
Yeah, there was. And it's kind of a nice moment. It maybe went a bit quiet for a moment there, which is crazy because, you know, it's a huge Ashes test match that just got us out after what turned into a tough innings for them. And you'd think the crowd would be elated, but they were really disappointed.
I mean, the only people who looked happy were the England fielders.
They were the only ones. There's footage of it, the same thing. I remember just going, like a side sort of smile on my face. It's like, oh well, you know, gee, that would have been good, but it was a beautiful moment, you know. And Graham Swan sprinted up to me, you know, and he was the first one to congratulate me. He'd just taken the catch and given it the big ones with the celebration, as he should. But he was the first one to come and congratulate me, and all the English players did. And I got a massive standing ovation from the crowd. Really, I cost Phil Hughes 100. He was batting so well, and he was a hero of mine to watch play because he'd flay the ball through point. He was a stylish batter. But sort of romantic moment, and pointing the bat at my parents as I was walking off the ground was cool.
Because the reaction of Mum, she had her head in her hand.
Yeah.
Catch was taken.
Well, they jumped up, and then you get out and they're like, oh God, you know. And
what was it like going back into the dressing room?
Awesome. Yeah, just you could tell that they were shattered for me, but everyone at the ground was more disappointed than I was, and it still remains that way. That's why it's such a great story. I think everyone feels something about that day. A lot of people know, who are cricket fans, exactly where they were watching that innings, but the feeling for me has never changed. You know, it's never turned into regret or disappointment, or I would have rather do something else. It's always been happy memories, and I'm glad I sort of fell on my sword.
And what about the rest of that day and the reaction? I think there's a lovely picture when you went out to field. I think you might have got posted on the boundary in front of your mum and dad.
Yeah, I did.
There's a great picture of you smiling. I think your mum's standing up.
Yeah.
What was it like for the rest of that day?
It was good, but
it was still a job to do.
That's what it felt like. It was great, and the crowd were loving me, and I enjoyed that. You know, I made sure I didn't shy away from the crowd. You know, that they'd still have their chance, that I would dance along with them, and I enjoyed that moment.
But you'd been taken to the hearts of the crowd, I guess.
Yeah, so it was a good way to win them over. But I really felt I just wanted to get a wicket. So I was there to bowl. And that was the overwhelming feeling. Like, it was so great to get the runs, and it was so exciting. It was important for the test match, no doubt, but I wanted to get a wicket.
Your mum and dad were on the radio. Our producer went and found them and got them on Test Match Special at tea time.
They were on everything. They were on, TV. We did an interview together after the day's play. They interviewed my brothers at the time. They were looking sharp. You know, where's my younger brother? He's an absolute rooster. Maybe he had his hair done. He had a shirt on, his tight pants on. You know, as was the fashion at the time, and he was lapping it up. They spoke beautifully. They were just so happy for me. But that's when, it was an absolute whirlwind of media after that. I couldn't tell you how many interviews I did after that.
The Prime Minister tweeted, Kevin Rudd.
I know. It was pandemonium.
How was your phone as well?
Phone was crazy, blowing up. Instagram was pretty new at that time, and I remember my followers had jumped maybe from a few hundred to like 10,000 or something. And you're like, what is going on? You know, it's so stupid. But it was non-stop. It's non-stop.
you said you just wanted that wicket because you were in the team to bowl, and they came the next day. Got Alistair Cook and Johnny Bairstow out for your first Test wickets. Yeah. But really, your bowling in that Test match is remembered for the wicket you should have had but didn't.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, Stuart Broad was part of this series, and he spoke about that moment, and he's spoken about it a lot. And his claim is that he is remembered as a his claim is he is remembered as a non-walker because Brad Haddin couldn't catch. Now, what's your take on this? Because this is the famous Stuart Broad not walking at Trent Bridge. You were the bowler when he edged it off Haddin's gloves into Michael Clarke's hands at first slip.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning, really, of Stuart Broad's love-hate relationship, or the Australian public.
Yeah, I was on a bit of a roll at the time, so I was bowling nicely, really nicely. I'd worked out a way to... My finger was ripped to pieces, so we'd glued a flap of skin down it's basically like surgical glue that the doctor had on him at the time. And I'd found a way to bowl across the seam. So I wasn't bowling with the seam down as you'd normally see. I was bowling with a scrambled seam because it's the only way I could hold it without cutting my finger. So it felt like I was starting to bowl up myself, and I was getting really nice shape on the ball. Got Cook out with a ball that bounced heavily from over the wicket. Michael Clarke, one-handed catch. Nice ball to get Bairstow outside edge to Haddin. Things were going good, and it felt like I just settled into a spell. It just felt like good Test match bowling, which was really nice. And I was starting to feel more comfortable out there, and like I belonged. The sun was out, all of that stuff, and there was a bit of rough out there, and I was just trying to hit this rough. And there were two patches. It was like quite a short patch and a fuller patch, and I just knew even if I missed a bit short, it would get in that. And that ball hit that shorter patch and spun a lot. And he went to cut it. It spun in, massive edge into Haddin's gloves, straight to Michael Clarke. And it was just like a non-event.
It's just out.
Clarke threw the ball up, and you can just see me in the footage. I just start walking down the wicket to celebrate with them. And they're still appealing. And Haddin's just going like this, and Michael Clarke's got his finger up, shaking his head, walking at pace to Alim Dar. And I'm like, he isn't doing this out. I was so confused as to what was happening. I didn't understand how the one bloke with the best view in the game somehow thought that it wasn't out. And it's confusing. I know umpiring is a tough job, but it was a pretty obvious one.
By Agar, Broad's out. He's out. He's flicked that away to slip, I think. He's been taken by Clarke. They're appealing. And Alim Dar, hang on, Alim Dar's saying not out. Australia have got no reviews left. Broad's coming up, leaning on his bat. That looked to me as if it edged it straight to slip. And Alim Dar's saying not out. And the Australians are furious.
I was so confused as to what was happening. I didn't understand how the one bloke with the best view in the game somehow thought that it wasn't out. And it's confusing. I know umpiring is a tough job, but it was a pretty obvious one. And I was just really confused. I wasn't going to say anything to the umpire because I was new. I was horribly disappointed because it's really hard to get wickets in Test match cricket, and I was on a bit of a roll, and it could have been interesting to see how many wickets I might have been able to get. You never know when you're on a roll like that, and you keep going, you might get 5. Who knows? But only what happens can happen. And I remember asking Stuart Broad, he probably spoke about this, I don't know if he did, but I was at short cover, and I was like, smashed that, didn't you? And he goes, yeah. I was like, yeah, I thought so. But it was a friendly interaction. He was like, yeah. And that was it. But you know what? Everyone gets into Broadie for not walking. There's no way I wouldn't walk. I'm not going to walk at that stage, no matter how obvious it is.
That's what he said. No one's a walker.
Nah, I'm not walking. Some guys have walked in their careers before. Cricket's hard, and you need luck. And that luck potentially changed that Test match. He got runs, and we lost by 17 runs. So he made a few runs after that. To say I haven't been lucky at times in my career, well, I got lucky maybe in the first innings and got given not out and I make 98 instead of 6. So how I look at that is, I wanted that wicket and it wasn't a good decision. Alim Dar apologised to me the next morning as we were going out. He goes, I'm sorry. He said, he came up to me, shook my hand and said, I'm sorry, young man, it was a bad decision. And I respect him for that. He's trying his best and he made a mistake. And that's all right. It doesn't change my life. It doesn't make any difference to me other than a great story. It's probably changed Stuart Broad's experiences in Australia, but Broadie's a good guy and he's a great competitor. That's the hallmark of his career, just competing.
I can't imagine that your teammates took it quite so, I don't know, phlegmatically as you did.
Oh, they were furious. You can see Phil Hughes, like, there's a great photo. It's like Haddon, Hughes and Clark all just with their hands out, basically yelling out what. And yeah, they were furious. That Michael Clark, he was so angry, just in his facial expression.
Brody copped it?
Well, to an extent, but they knew they wouldn't walk in that situation either. So they probably didn't expect anything different from him. They were more interested in the decision, but it's a good story.
Is that a bit of a sliding doors moment for your career, though? Because you've just said, if you'd got that wicket, you could have got a roll. On a roll, you could have got 4 or 5, who knows? Because you played in the second test, and that was harder for you, and you didn't play again in that series.
Yeah.
And you only played 3 more test matches. Do you look at that as like, God, if you'd given that out, who knows what might have happened?
Not at all. My finger was ripped to pieces. I was in a lot of pain, like trying to bowl. I knew that my action was falling apart because I could feel it out there, and I knew I could bowl so much better. It was really difficult to deal with mentally. You've got to be pretty resilient as a 19-year-old trying to bowl out in the middle in a test match, knowing that you're nowhere near your best, with no experience behind you, and you're trying to work it out in a test match. And you don't know how to work it out. You have no blueprint for how you go about things. You've just bowled as a kid your whole life, and you've enjoyed it. So that's a insight into my mindset. I've never believed in what if this happened, what if that happened. I've literally never believed in that. So no, I wouldn't say it's a sliding doors moment at all. I think even if I got 6 for that game, I don't think I would have bowled any differently in the next test match. I went in the next test match with a ripped up finger, but I was trying not, I didn't want to say anything. I wasn't going to rule myself out of a test match. But it was a pretty bad feeling going into the next test, I must admit. It was really difficult being out there at Lords, sort of wishing that I wasn't bowling, because you're the one that the spotlight's on, everyone's watching you. You know that you're so much better than what you're delivering.
And the spotlight's been turned up because of what's happened at Trent.
Absolutely. And you know you're better than what you're delivering. And you just wish you could showcase it, but confidence wasn't there. The feel in my hand was completely gone from that feeling in my finger, so I had no real control over what I was delivering. And it was a pretty lonely place, I'll be quite honest. It was really difficult, and I was so relieved when I got dropped for the 3rd test. Incredible sense of relief. It was pretty exhausting after that week. You're getting through that, because you just have to put on a brave face and you keep going and try and do a job for your country, because I understood that's such an important thing, and I wasn't taking that for granted. And realistically, you look at the figures, I didn't bowl that bad. I probably went at 2.5 and over for the test, but I knew that I could have done a lot better, and that was tough.
How long did you struggle with your action for?
After that, probably a year, I would say. Just trying to piece it all back together, because it got thrown out of whack. My stride got a bit longer, which meant I was delivering the ball from a bit further behind myself, which meant I didn't have the up and down shape that I'd had the year before, or the spin and bounce and the shape through the air. So there's a big flow-on effect of that, and I guess what it does for your confidence. And the thing is, I came home, then I was playing again for WA, and I was still trying to work it out in the middle with no real help. I had no help in WA. I mean, Michael Beer wasn't helping me because he was my competitor spinner, and he went to play for WA, and there were no spin coaches at the time. Like, I had no resources that could help me, so I was trying to work it out for myself. So it was very difficult, very, very difficult. But the good thing is I'd always put time into other disciplines, and I was trying to bat well and field well, and just try and do my best with the ball while I could. The Lord's test was tough, because I knew I wasn't where I wanted to be cricket-wise, and felt like I wasn't going very well. It was a lonely place to be, and I wanted to experience Lords as the most magical place on earth, and at the time it was the worst place on earth, if that makes sense. It was tough. But the best part was meeting the Queen.
That doesn't happen all the time.
Before the game.
She only went to certain test matches.
Yeah, it was
so it's before the
incredible.
game?
It was before the game. The game, I'm pretty sure, started late because the Queen was late. And obviously you're going to wait for the Queen of England. And she arrived, Michael Clark introduced her to everyone, and we had to address her as Your Majesty. And she came to me and she shook my hand. She goes, "This is your first time here, isn't it?" And I said, "It is." She goes, "Oh, well, good luck then. Have a good time." And I could not believe it. I was like, "Oh my God!" The Queen knew it was me and knew that it was my first time at Lord's, which is pretty special. So that's a very important moment because Queen Elizabeth, I mean, you ask anyone from England, they absolutely adore her, and a lot of Australians adore her as well, and I'm one of them. So to meet the Queen, I'm pretty proud of that moment, and the fact that she said that to me is, that's pretty big looking back on it.
Well, it shows just how much you captured the imagination in the previous week. The Queen knew.
It's nice. I mean, that's the thing. If you to feel something is good, and I felt the same way watching Sam Constas play in his debut. Took a lot of inspiration from that because I think I felt a bit of what he was feeling. He was just riding the wave, mate, and he went for it, and he just fully expressed himself out there on the biggest stage at the time, and that's how it felt for me. So, hopefully it made someone feel something positive.
And that third test, when Nathan Lyon came in, that was his start of.
Oh, beautifully.
That was the start of his running team, and it's hard to get past Nathan Lyon, and you only played 3 more test matches after that. I think that'll start him playing 100 consecutive tests for Australia.
Yeah, and he bowled beautifully. I remember watching him in his first over in the game at Manchester. He spun one past the bat, and you could just tell he'd changed his action. That's when he started turning himself side on and using his back leg quite a lot, and it was just a lot more efficient. And the shape he was getting on the ball was quite special. And you felt like the evolution of that was going to be pretty good. And he also started bowling around the wicket in the Durham Test match, which is kicked off a lot of his bowling to right-handers at that time. He'd come around the wicket and target the outside edge really well. So there were a couple of big moments for him there. And, to Nath's credit, he was so supportive of me the whole time. He has been throughout my whole career. That would have been really tough for him, being dropped for the first couple of tests, and I know that really hurt him. But it never changed his attitude towards me. He was just there to support me as much as he could with bowling. So, I've always been grateful for that and for his character.
One thing we haven't touched on, I guess just as a bit of a final thought, was the man that you shared that partnership with. Because Phil Hughes lost his life just over a year later. How do you sort of reflect on that as having shared that experience with him?
Lucky, very, very lucky. There's more to it. I had a photo of Phil playing for New South Wales up on my bedroom wall. When KFC T20 in Australia before it was the Big Bash, and he was playing one of his signature windmill cut shots. And my brothers and I loved how he played the game, particularly my brother Will. My brother Will loved Phil so much. It was his favourite player, and he actually has one of Phil's bats that Phil gave to me during that time, and Will still has it. It sits pride of place in his house, and Will's 30 now. That's one of his prized possessions. So in the lead up to batting with Phil, it was like I was batting with someone I looked up to. I remember watching his first Test series against South Africa where he made those hundreds, and it was amazing. And then getting to share one of the biggest moments of my life so far with him, and credit him for teaching me something about resilience and staying present and what that does for you in terms of performance. That was a huge, huge lesson, and he showed me that in real time. And that's a mature thing to do for a young man. So, and it's just a special time to spend together. He's gone now, and he everyone loved him. He was such a fun guy, so funny. So, he would finish the game, and I remember one day he was just on his phone, looking at cattle auctions, back at home for his farm, trying to buy cattle. That's what he really cared about, and he was a good cricketer as well. Just a beautiful man. So I feel lucky to spend that time with him, and grateful for the lessons that he taught me.
And coincidentally, I think not long after he lost his life, you made 98.
Yeah, in club game.
In a grade game.
Yeah, it was kind of spooky actually. It was the first game back that any cricket game was played, and there was a big 408 like painted on the ground at uni, and at every ground we had a minute of silence before the game, and that was tough. You know, a lot of blokes are in tears and stuff. And I remember just trying to be like pretty strong that day, and I remember feeling like quiet but focused. And when I was batting, I was actually thinking about our innings, sort of thing, what he was telling me at that time. And yeah, it just so happens like I was on 98 and nicked a ball to second slip, and yeah, who knows? I don't know if anything happens for a reason or not. I don't think about that too much, but it's kind of scary that it happened that way. It was nice that it happened that way.
We spent an hour talking about that day, that innings, and it seems to me like your memories of it are really, really vivid.
Very.
But I think you also just said you'd watched it a lot.
Yeah.
How many times do you reckon you've watched it?
Hard to say. In the last 8 years, like 5 times, you know. More in the last 10 years, hardly any. In the year after that, a lot. You know, you'd watch it with family and friends, and I'd watch it back for confidence, and I'd actually watch it back as a reference point to the way I was batting. Like, it was all about the reason I'd watch it. It wasn't to make myself feel good about the moment. It was because I played really well, and I actually loved how I was picking the bat up. I was ripping the bat up, and it was like flying up past my ears, and then I'd just fall down on the ball, and I'd either just stop the ball or I'd go through it. So technically, the way I was batting was great, and I'd probably been trying to get back to that ever since. But it's really hard to replicate a single moment in time. So yeah, that's why I'd watch it, and then it's nice to, like you said, hear Ian Botham's voice. And that's the really memorable part about watching it, and that makes you feel good.
Judging by the smile on your face throughout talking about it, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's written down. Is it the 98 you made or the 2 you didn't make?
No, it's the 98 I made, yeah. I never really thought about the 2 that I didn't. I don't really believe in what could have happened. Just really happy for what happened that day. Glad it's made a lot of people happy, and glad we can talk about it now with a fondness, and hopefully it inspired some people.
And I'm sure you would have wanted more from your Test career, but not many people, or there'll be a lot of people who've played more Ashes Tests, and not got that place in history that you have.
That's right. It's not about that, You just do the best with what's in front of you, and I did a good job that day, and I rode the wave, and that's how it happened. I felt like I was courageous and brave, and that's what I'm most pleased about. But it doesn't speak anything of anyone else's time playing an Ashes Test. I think if you played an Ashes Test, it was a pretty cool experience, and that's a pretty important shared experience to have, and it's a proud club to be a part of.